Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always. This is Go Again, a fabulous video cast covering the trading card game Flesh and Blood. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando. Hello Flesh and Blood folks, welcome back to Go Again here on Dice Commando. Today I'm joined by Josh the intern. How's it going, my friend?
Well, great, how are you, sir?
It's going well. We're 2.5 days into spoiler season, and both Josh and I had some time available and figured we'd shoot a cast and talk about what we've seen. And we've seen some doozies. So we've seen two of the three elements, at least on the Ranger side. So yeah, lots to talk about today. Hey folks, welcome back. Thanks for joining us again. So Josh and I were just talking. We were maybe going to talk about Road to Nats and all that stuff, but we're not really mentally prepared for that. So we're just too focused on the new, cool, and exciting stuff. But you are headed to Vegas, correct?
I am.
So you're going to get to see all this stuff firsthand in like a week.
Yeah, I'm actually signed up to play on the Friday premiere event, so I'll be able to see and play with the cards here just a short while.
That's pretty awesome. I will not make it to Vegas. I finally had to make the call about a week ago that I wasn't going to make it, so that's okay. Lots of stuff going on, but all right. So, I forgot to put up the slideshow. I made this whole slideshow thing, and then I didn't even put it up. There we go. All right. So what I have up right now is a slideshow of all of the cards we have as of the minute of shooting this, or starting shooting it. I'm sure one will drop while we're doing it, just because that's the way things work. So it'll just cycle through. But, the big things we've seen, obviously Lexi. We started with Ranger. There's been a lot to talk about there. But what I wanted to get through first was, I think, kind of the more staple stuff of the set, which is the elements. We've seen Fusion, which I think is the big overall new mechanic for the set, as well as the element stuff. So basically what Fusion is it's a mechanic on many of the elemental cards that says, and they're all specific element cards, right? So a lightning card would have it, but a general elemental card, we haven't yet seen that. But basically what it says is, as you play this card, reveal a matching element from your hand to do some special effect. So, yeah, I mean, card intensive for sure, but some of the effects are pretty hot. So what's your take so far on Fusion?
I think it's pretty interesting because I had thought going into this that we might see some, because Lexi was spoiled with two elements, that we would see two lines of play that you can maybe mix and match. But the more fusion cards we see, it makes me think that you probably build towards one element or the other. And I think it's the mechanic seems pretty cool. It requires some planning that I think we'll have to figure out with. To play a card, you had to pitch something most of the time if it's not a zero. And then you have to have a card in hand to reveal for the fusion to go off, which limits what you could have blocked with on your previous turn. So it kind of makes me wonder how you're going to have to strategize your hands in whole new ways that you didn't necessarily have to keep into account. Like, what's the most optimal play? Is blocking for 3 here the best thing, or is giving my fusion effect on my card worth more than 3?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do have to say I think that the fusion thing has, at least out of the gate for me, made I was the last set Monarch was pretty aggressive. There was a lot of characters that didn't really care about blocking as much as we've traditionally seen, and I thought maybe the set would go the opposite direction, and it does not appear so. It appears to be very card intensive, at least so far. Yeah. So lightning as an element. So we've seen, like I said, we know what all 3 elements are because we saw the amulets, or at least we know at least what 3 of them are. Maybe there's more, but it seems likely there's only going to be 3. We have lightning, we have ice, and then we have earth. I don't believe there's been any earth cards spoiled other than just the amulet.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, so lightning seems very intensive on go again, right? Most of the lightning effects are go again in some way, or a lot of the fuses are deal one addition. Each attack deals one additional damage or something to that effect. Ice seems very control heavy. So we'll talk about ice and frostbite here in a second. But so lightning with go again, is this just more? I mean, what's your take on this? Is this just more chain type stuff where you just go hard and go heavy?
I think to a certain degree, I think it's a little bit more limiting because unlike Chain, you still have to have the card as a resource one way or the other, by pitching or revealing it or playing it. Whereas Chain can just kind of manifest cards that he has access to.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it'll be quite as efficient. But I do kind of like that there seems to be a lot of redundancy in the abilities. The amulet gives go again, the bow gives go again, some of the fusion cards give go again. And I think that'll really help with consistency, where even if you're using, the card pool and building your deck, you could probably rely on being able to get your effects off. Whereas I think something like Boltyn, there's only so many cards that have charge, and you have to have them in the right time and have a card to charge your soul with. And I think this might be a little bit more efficient than the charging mechanic, but still not as easy as Chain is for the.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable statement. I mean, it's certainly way more limiting on the upside than a chain. Yeah, I mean, maybe chain was a bad example there because yeah, chain doesn't really have a ceiling, whereas you would have a ceiling here. But yeah, card draw with lightning. Like maybe if there's a lightning guardian that you can get extra intelligence with the peak or something like that, right? So I mean, as of like 2 hours before shooting this, the Guardian's been confirmed. We've seen a Guardian card, so we don't know what the Guardian does yet. But
Right.
so I don't know. Do you think all of them are going to be two elements?
I would think so, just from a draft mechanic, to be able to choose two out of the three elements for whichever hero you're leaning towards, or even give you the ability to not to commit until later,
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing an actual draft versus sealed. So I think we're all kind of on the assumption that obviously Lexi's lightning and cold. Everyone assumes Guardian will be cold and earth, just from a thematic standpoint, and then whatever left would be what would be earth and lightning
Earth and
are the other
lightning.
two options. So it'd be interesting if that's actually the case, but I imagine just from draftability, we could probably safely assume everyone's going to have two elements, and no two heroes will have the same. So there'll be some choices you make.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable. I think that's probably reasonable. I hadn't really thought about it from the limited play standpoint, but I think that's pretty fair. So cool. All right. So moving on to cold, and let me pull up the frostbite token here so I can read it out loud. But so we've seen that Lexi can poop out frostbite tokens, and we've seen some other effects that can poop out frostbite tokens. So a frostbite is an aura. It is an aura, by the way, which was funny because I actually made a comment in one of my other videos that I thought maybe frostbite probably would not be an aura because then you're putting auras in play against your opponent, which is kind of interesting from a what's her name, from a Prism point of view, right? Anyway, so frostbite cards and activated abilities you control cost an additional resource, and by you, remember it's in control under your opponent. So your opponent's cards and activated abilities cost an additional resource. At the beginning of the end phase, or when you play a card or activate an ability, destroy frostbite. So yeah, that's pretty good. One of them is not necessarily a big deal. Two of them might be a big deal.
Yeah, I
More
think
of them.
I mean, even with Chain or the Katsu or anyone that really is super efficient, one can mess up a turn or change, what you're trying to do. But I think once you get to, like yours, to get to two or more is just really puts your hand in a weird position. And I wonder how often we'll see situations where you try to play around it, or you just Arsenal pass and try
Let
to
him,
get them to go away and move on.
yeah, just give up and let him blow up. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but either way, then it's still a win, right? If I give you 2 frostbite tokens and you pass a turn, I don't. I mean, it's kind of a win as long as I was able to progress my game plan, right? If all I do is poop out, if I spend a whole turn to poop out 2 tokens to make you miss a turn, I guess nobody really gained or lost anything, right?
Yeah,
So
but you're still putting a decision point on your opponent, which I imagine would be.
yeah, yeah. I mean, with one of them in play, you could still have a turn. I mean, even if you're, you mentioned Katsu, right? He could still, I guess, all of them though, right? I mean, he could still throw a card out, right? You're not going to be able to because the Kodachis would each cost that would cost 4 to swing with 2 Kodachis, right?
Well,
With
just the first one would be increased.
just the first one because it pops. That's right. So it would cost you 3 to swing with 2 Kodachis. I mean, that's not
And
horrible.
I don't have as much experience with Katsu and Ira and for Blitz, but it seems to me there's a lot of turns where whether you can even set up your Kadachi card to try to trigger mask, a lot of times depends on one resource and what cards you have. So even on the aggro decks that are usually pretty efficient, they might change whether they go for the second Kadachi and just go straight into their card to get the more damage out, or just creating more decision points on how they play. I think is it'll be interesting because I don't think we've seen a ton of ice cards other than the Chilling Ice Bane and the Frostbite token itself and the Amulet. So I'm curious to see, at least for Lexi, since she's the only ice hero we know about, what other lines of play is ice going to provide that would make it to where you would choose that line of play for Lexi over Lightning. Because right
Mm-hmm.
now it seems like Lightning is so up her alley that sure you might put a card here or there that might give you a Frostbite token, but I think by and large you're gonna have to lean pretty heavy into Lightning. And
Yeah,
maybe that's just me kind of wishful thinking, just because I really want Ice Guardian to have a little bit of control with my crush effects, presumably. But
well, that's what I was gonna say. Is control seems way more up a guardian alley than it does a ranger alley. But I don't know. And I mean, just showing up on the screen right now is the rotten old buckler, which is the offhand weapon. So I mean, we had seen that rule get put in the RRG or the comprehensive rules, I should say, last update or 2 updates ago. So now we've seen that. So spear and shield or staff and shield. I mean, I guess if it's like a guardian with a staff that like turns ice into something, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of lines to go down there, and it probably makes sense that since there's 3 heroes, we'll probably get. I mean, we've already seen Guardian cards, so it's likely we'll get the Guardian next. The Guardian will probably come with more ice cards, just in terms of spoilers, and then we'll probably get Earth cards on the last guy or girl, or they, or whatever, right? So,
right.
yeah. Interesting. All right, so Ranger then, I mean, that's been the talk of the town, because that's what we've been seeing. First overall 10,000 foot takes on not just her, but just all takes on Ranger. What are you thinking?
I think that there is a lot of options here. Like, there's a lot of cards that seem really great, but they seem even better with you if you set them up with another card. And it's kind of nice to see the connections. I don't know if I remember this from previous sets where it's kind of like, oh, if you do A and then B, they kind of synergize with each other. And I don't know if it's diffused mechanic in and of itself or just better and better game development that we're seeing these things that there's cards that are interacting with each other, and it's kind of fun to speculate how you could build a turn around it. And with there being so many options, I think there's going to be more kind of play variety.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just I'm going to plunder run into a CNC and get to draw a card. It's going to be, well, I have this, so I can do these lines of play with the cards in my hand. So I think it's going to be a little bit more dynamic each turn, what you can pull off with Reindeer, and especially with Lexi. So I think it's actually really interesting to see how each little card's ability with the fuse can add a little something to the next thing, or and how they play into each other. It'll be really interesting. I think it'll make it to where it's a little harder to anticipate the lines of play, which actually could make it a little bit more fun. There's no just, oh, he's going to do X, Y, and Z, and this means I have to block this card, and that's the best optimal play. I think there's going to be a little bit more decision making on defense, even if everything in the meta seems like it should still be heavy aggro. Um, I think people are going to have to change the lines of play, and it'll be interesting to see how people adapt to the new stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you said it quite well. And because in the past we've had nimblism into nimble strike, or the combos or the lines or the synergies should have been pretty clear. Maybe the first step in that direction was Prism with like the yellow go again. Like there's a couple different ways to take advantage of that, right? But yeah, I mean, basically any elemental card can now be somehow, well, any elemental card can be comboed with something of its own element, right? To a certain degree.
Right.
Yeah, it should be. I think I can see now why they've been touting how this is a really cool limited experience, which is kind of unfortunate given that it looks like the print run's small again, and
Oh no.
well, we're already hearing about stores on allocation, and we still don't have a release date for Unlimited, so it could be a while before we all get to partake in that amazing limited experience, unless you're paying to go to a convention. So anyway, but that's
That is one thing I will
thing.
say that I did get to go to some Monarch pre-releases, but those are basically the only limited experiences I had were the pre-releases. And then we had Skirmish season start, and then Road to Nationals seasons are happening, and now there's a new set coming out, and I kind of hope that we have a little bit more time with this new set to have draft and sealed, because it's such a fun format, and it looks like everything we've seen so far speaks to you're going to have choices for character, you're going to have choices between elements. Obviously, there's going to be some commons. There's just a lot of things that would make drafting really exciting. So I hope we'll have more time to do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I had a couple things I wanted to ping you on just that we've seen in the last day on Ranger. So I thought it was funny that the card Ranger got in the last set was Seek Horizon, and then the new legendary equipment is New Horizon. Right? I don't know if that's just a play or not or whatever, but changes the game. So I think it's not only is it too early, I think it was looking real bad for Azalea there for about a 36-hour period. And then that new card came out. What is it? Seek and Destroy.
Mm-hmm.
So now Azalea's looking like she's got a fighting chance anyway. But I'm bummed out that this new legendary headpiece is a headpiece, and that like Crosswrap's just dead, right? Like, isn't Crosswrap just worthless?
I don't know if it's worthless, because Azalea can get a lot of things done with that dominate ability. But I think you would even kind of swerved out the cross reps for certain matchups in either Constructor or Blitz. So I'm curious if the extra Arsenal slot will provide enough of a benefit to be able to pull that off. Now, I don't know if Azalea will be able to benefit from it as much as Lexi, because I don't think there's as much inherent go again. And that bow that loads 2 is only elemental. So I think that maybe with the right build, Ranger better than I do, you could probably have a decision point, but I'm kind of thinking Crosswraps is probably the better choice, unless there's ways to load up those Arsenal slots. Because even with like 3 of a kind, that lets you draw the cards and play from Arsenal, but it doesn't load it. So
it does not have reload.
And actually, I don't think we've seen a single Ranger card that has reload yet in this set. And
well, it's because reload can't reload if you're right. It doesn't matter if you have it, because it says in the rules there, right, that if there's a card in any of your arsenal zones, your arsenal is considered to have a card in it. So reload doesn't work once you have a card in your arsenal. Even if you had 5 slots, it wouldn't work, right?
yeah, that could be another reason why the Crosswraps isn't necessarily dead. but um, yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I do love the art on Seek and Destroy, and I was glad it had Azalea on it.
It's actually up right now. There you go. But no, but I mean, well, I'll have the card up anyway in editing. But yeah, I mean, Seek and Destroy into. So the reason we're saying it's Azalea specific, right, just to catch everybody up, is because the combo of that plus Red in the Ledger is insanely scary, and Red in the Ledger is a spec. So that's specifically for Azalea. I mean, there's no question about it. One of the things I had said coming in was that, you know, Azalea would look good on 0/4s. We haven't seen any generic 0/4s yet, so we'll see. I will say that Endless Arrow with Lexi and some of the tricks she's got available in terms of go again and multiple reloads with, what is it, Voltaire. Endless Arrow looks real good. It was always your best card anyway, but looks real good now. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. I do think that, well, one of the things that's bugging me is that I think that the new hat, New Horizon, I think you pretty much almost have to have it to play Ranger. Do you think that's accurate, or?
I mean, I don't have the reps or experience, but my impression.
I mean, new Ranger, by the way, new Ranger.
I would say it kind of seems that way. But at the same time, this is where I get kind of conflicted. On the one hand, I feel like, yeah, you need to have that second arsenal slot for sure. But then the other hand, I'm thinking with the way Lightning Infused works, when are you going to have time to load 2 cards into arsenal to begin with? Or have it be a slot where you might need 2 slots in a turn, depending on what cards you have going and how you load them. Obviously, not all of it's going to be reload, or if we're using Voltaire. But it's kind of almost a temporary access point. I don't, other than going second, so that, or going, you know, what would that be? Going second, so that you can use the instant ability to load 2 arrows with Voltaire to start your very first turn of the game. I don't know how often you're going to be ending a turn with 2 cards in Arsenal and being able to really take that, use that mechanic until, I guess, a point if there are defense reacts or traps, which I somehow want to work, even though they're not amazing. You're putting those in one of your arsenal slots and then arsenaling another arrow.
But not with the bow.
Reload,
because the bow will only load arrows, right? So,
and that's where it gets kind of tricky. Like, I don't know. I guess I don't know enough, or we maybe haven't seen enough to see how it could work. But I'm almost wondering, how are you going to have the cards to really take advantage of that mechanic?
I think that's a fair point. One thing I do want to point out to everyone, I think a lot of people are getting hung up on it being an instant thing. The reason I believe that it's an instant isn't so you can use it on your opponent's turn, it's so that it doesn't break the combat chain. I think that's the main reason it's an instant now instead of an action like it used to be, is because if you have one of these elemental cards that gives everything in the chain, you know, an additional damage, now you can instant in the arrow instead of taking the action to break the chain.
Yeah, I don't think there's probably too many situations where you're going to be using that instant on your opponent's turn, except for the first turn of the game.
Right. So, but, I mean, it does technically let you load 3 arrows, right? Or I guess 4. I mean, I guess you could, in theory, because you'd have 2 going in. I mean, I don't know where you're getting these cards from, but with Endless Arrow, I guess it's the same card, and you could keep doing it. So you could load Endless Arrow. I mean, sure, there are situations that'll come up, but I think I agree with you. I think largely you're not doing that. So I think it'll depend on how many 0/4 arrows she gets. We'll see.
It brings up a question I'm curious about, that, you know, for the rules standpoint. How do instants interact with Frostbite? Because I wouldn't think they're considered activated abilities. If you're under Frostbite, could you use your bow to load it and then just pass?
I think it is an activated ability. It is, sure. So it would just cost you 2 to reload, and it would pop it, right?
Well, that's what I'm curious. I don't know if an instant qualifies as. I guess it would. I'm not sure.
I think it would. I understand what you're asking, though, but I think it counts.
It probably does.
Yeah. But I understand why you're asking that, and it's not. I understand. Huh. But I think I could get around it on the instant.
But even that, I guess that's a good point for Frostbite with if you do have Voltaire, if you're not going to be able to afford to do what you want, sure, just pitch yellow or blue, load Voltaire twice, and then go into your next hand.
Well, you're yellow. Oh, yeah. 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 Well, cool. So, I mean, that's, we only have 2.5 days, 3 days to set in, but I think we've learned quite a bit. I think I'm concerned. My first take is I'm concerned about the card intensivity of this set being just like all gas all the time. And maybe that's just skewed because we've mostly seen lightning cards, completely fair. But it's going to be an interesting mix between lightning's gas and ice's control, I think.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, if we have gas and control, what's left?
What's Earth going to be?
Yeah, like what's left?
Gas control, I guess something Earth would be maybe super defensive. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, it would have to be defenses. Oh, so I did want to ask you something. Let me pull it up here. The Amulet of Earth, I don't get it. Because it's instant, destroy it, attack action cards you can gain +1 attack and +1 defense this turn. Activate this ability only if you've used Earth Fused this turn. So, in order to use the defense part of that, you would have to have fused on your opponent's turn.
Right.
So there would have to be some sort of defensive instant, or maybe you can fuse while you defend. When you defend with, maybe that's the Earth thing. When you defend with this card, you can fuse it or something. Otherwise, the defense part of Amulet of Earth wouldn't make any sense.
Right.
Right? Like it would be completely unusable. Except for referenced card effects.
Actually, I think that's probably a very good call because I think we'll. We had kind of talked about where would we go with defense reacts in this set, and I think a lot of us talked about there something that can deal with Goa, like something that blocks for 2 and your next attack gets 1 or something like that. Similar to Flick Flack, but not necessarily the same mechanic. But if there's a defense react for Earth that allows you to fuse, and it triggers later cards that you block with or triggers the amulet, then I think you got it spot on. That's probably something that we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise this is basically useless for defense.
Yeah, it's kind of like a half Art of War.
Yeah. So, I mean, going into the defense reaction, actually, that's a good point, right? I mean, we had talked about that a bit, I think, in Monarch, where Monarch, aside from, Rise Above, didn't really get defense reactions like the other sets. Like, each set we had seen so far, and granted, there had only been 2 of them, but each set we'd seen so far had a generic defense react, Sink Below and Fate Foreseen. We didn't really get that, which is fine, because, you don't want too many of them out there that are generic to have access with.
Yeah, I think we got Rise Up, Soul Shield, and then the Guardian of the Shadow Realm, I think. So 1 Shadow, 1 Light, and 1 generic.
That is unplayable by most, or is not unplayable, but not desirable by most. So, I mean, that would be a good space to go, actually, is do some defense reacts, but keep them elemental so they can keep them in check, so not everybody has access to them. I mean, I think that's, yeah, I like that. I think that's a good guess. All right, well, before we get out of here, what else you got? You have other cool stuff from the set you wanted to talk about?
Well, obviously, the greatest card in the set so far is that Buckler, just because it confirms that Guardian is coming. So that is the card I'm most excited about. I do want to know more about how Earth is going to work. We've seen a lot of some ice, a lot of lightning, but I would like to see, obviously, what the Guardian ability is going to be, who the hero is, what lines of play. I think it's already interesting to speculate that if the Guardian has a buckler as an offhand, it's going to have a one-handed weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So is it going to be hammer? Is it going to be pummelable? I already know certain local players who are going to be a little upset if they can't pummel whatever Guardian weapon it comes out. And the other speculation will be, since or not speculative. One of the things that I'm worried about or I'm curious about is it seems kind of odd that they would have an L head equipment for Ranger when they already had an L equipment for Ranger. And I know they don't necessarily want to immediately fridge out everyone's legendaries in all the slots, but to double up on the one slot seems a little odd. And now it makes me wonder if that's kind of a precursor to Guardian. Tectonic plating has been the beginning and ending of all Guardian things. And even though it's called tectonic plating, part of me wonders if there's going to be an L chest slot that's going to make you choose between either tectonic plating
Hmm.
and Anathos, or it's going to be whatever line of play this presumably ice L equipment is going to give you, and whether the weapon associated with it, presumably whatever lines of play that would be synergistic with it. Um, so I'm kind of worried because I want tectonic plating around pretty much forever. But on the other hand, it would be kind of an interesting play for LSS to bring us something that would force decisions on what cards you play, what equipment, and weapons you slot.
Yeah, it certainly changes the collectability of things, though, right? Which is part of the conversation that's always been there. I mean, I don't care too much if things like I don't really have much of a stake if things get cheaper, but it doesn't seem to fit with their mantra. But I mean, obviously they did it for the head slot. I mean, and if you're gonna bump a head slot, like cross wrap was not that amazing anyway, right? But yeah, I don't know. So yeah, what's your take on Shock Charmers, this new legendary? So instant. So it's a lightning equipment arms. So you would have to. Actually, do you have to? Oh, you'd have to have lightning affinity.
I assume so.
Yeah, but it doesn't say that, so that must have to be a RG update or something like that. So anyway, it's instant for 2. The next time an attack action card you control hits a hero, it deals 1 damage to them, and this has Spell Void 2. So convince me why this doesn't suck.
I think part of it is I know we haven't seen all of the pieces to the puzzle just yet. Um, the only thing I've managed to think that would make it interesting, it would be if you frazzle. Because frazzle, I think anytime you do damage, you do one more. So that would make Snake Charmers a 2 damage for 2. But what I think is what'll be interesting is not just with the Snake Charmers, but also with the specialization for Lexi. Those are cards that do damage that, to my knowledge, cannot be blocked. It's after an attack is hit, after you've played defense reactions, and unless you have Bonehead Barrier as an instant or something like that, or you have floating, I guess you wouldn't even have floating Spectral Shields at that point because they wouldn't have hit. It's just unblockable damage,
Yeah, because
unpreventable
it's not
damage.
arcane, which is
Yeah,
that's
it's not
a good
arcane. So
point. So it's always on unblockable damage. But it says deals 1 damage to them. And then yeah, frazzled says if it was fused, whenever an attack would deal damage, instead it deals that much damage plus 1. Yeah. And then you and I were talking earlier, I was like, well, wouldn't you just run? I mean, the fact, I guess part of this here for me is that it's an L, right? And I guess like I'm always thinking utilization of resources. Like, is this worth buying? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and that's where it gets kind of weird. Like maybe there's something we haven't seen yet. I don't because it's unblockable damage or damage that happens after you've had the chance to respond to anything, with the exception of Bonehead Barrier. For Brute, I don't think they want it to be super strong, but I don't know if what we've seen that it's good enough
right,
to chase.
right. Yeah. And I mean, even so, like, I think if I opened this instead of like a New Horizon, I think I'd be bummed. But we'll have to see what the other L's look like too.
Oh,
So,
actually, hold on. We had a discussion in one of the various discords. I think it has to do with one of the ice cards that when it, or one of the cards in the set is when it does damage, you have to discard a card or pay a resource.
Is that Chilling Ice Vein?
And I think we were wondering if that actually triggers with the Snake Charmers.
Yeah, so if Chilling Ice Vein was fused, whenever an attack deals damage to a hero this turn, they discard a card unless they pay. So then
that
if
actually
that were to
works
hit, it would
with
trigger twice. Yeah.
right. So it's subtle. It's little things like Frazzle getting a +1 to it, and Chilling Ice Vein making them have two instances of having to pay or lose a card.
I see.
And it's not necessarily amazing, but it's already kind of okay. I don't think I would chase it with what the other options are right now, but I could see how decks could be built around just really punishing that extra point of damage here and there, or forcing that extra. Either you're going to pitch a card to save a card, or save two cards, or you're just going to lose cards if you can't, for whatever reason, pitch. So that might be. I just can't imagine what would make it like awesome without making it broken.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, and I'd rather, from a game design standpoint, skew to lower. I mean, right? So that, I mean, that's a good point. Yeah, I was just surprised when I saw that as an L. Like, given, because New Horizon looks super hot, and anyway, we'll see. I mean, I'd assume at this point that each one of the heroes is going to get their own L, or each one of the classes, I should say, is going to get their own L. And then there'll probably be maybe, I mean, so that you'd have 1, 2, 3 for the classes, and then one for each element, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, interesting.
Though I still think there's probably some secret hero in here somewhere.
That'll be the fabled. You have to pull the fabled to get the hero. Yeah, I hope not. So, all right. Well, I think that'll do it for today. I mean, it's very, very early, so it's all. I mean, it's not speculation.
That's the one thing. It's exciting to talk about the new cards, but we know we don't have all the pieces. So some things that seem broken or seem like they don't work, there'll probably be something that answers or solves that puzzle. Going forward, but a lot of cool stuff. The art in this set, I think, is probably my favorite, even from just the limited number of cards we've seen. I think the art in this set is just outstanding.
Yeah, I've got New Horizon up right now, and the art on New Horizon is, I love it. And this Chilling Ice Vein that's there right now is also going to look great as a foil, I think. We'll see. Maybe we'll have to wait for Rainbow Foil to see how good it looks. But, well, I mean, they'll all be Rainbow Foil anyway. But I think New Horizon's going to look pretty hot as a cold foil, actually. So, yeah, we will see. All right, well, just want to remind everybody that Dice Commando, we have our spoilers coming out September 9th. Now, that's the last day before everything drops, but we have not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 spoilers, and there's some good stuff in there. So anyway, make sure to tune in on that. You can listen to it, download it, listen to it on your flight to Las Vegas, and that should keep you entertained for a little bit. So anyway, folks, just want to remind everybody, Gongai Games, we've got the schedule out through the end of the year. Come play with us. We've got the pre-release happening, and then we've got scheduled all the way out through December. So come play with us if you're in the area, or even if you're not, come play with us. Josh flew up for a tournament one time. You can too. And then, of course, if you are going to go buy singles, especially for this new set, don't forget my buddy over at Fab Foundry. If you're over there, use the link below, and we get a kickback for that. So much appreciated. With that said, anything else you have?
No. Looking forward to Vegas. Look forward to seeing the new cards.
Yeah, go give this man a high five if you see him in Vegas. Say, I've seen you on the YouTubes. Give him a big old hug. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be here every couple days through spoiler season in some form or another. So thanks for joining us, and go Commando.
Go Commando.